Gabriel Locke had always been a man of reason, a scientist driven by logic and evidence. But on that cold, moonless night, his world shattered. It began with a whisper, faint like the rustling of forgotten pages, and yet it felt like it was directly inside his mind. He ignored it at first, chalking it up to fatigue, the long hours of research wearing on him. But as the whispers grew louder, he couldn't dismiss them anymore. They were no longer fleeting thoughts, but a constant, insistent murmur. Gabriel, they are coming. The time is near. His pulse quickened. He scanned the lab, the empty room where only his equipment hummed quietly. The words weren't his own. No, they came from somewhere far deeper. The air seemed to press in on him, as if the very walls had ears. He shot out of his chair, his heartbeat pounding in his ears, but the whisper persisted, growing clearer with every passing moment. Earth will fall unless you awaken the Keeper. Gabriel staggered back, his eyes darting to the corner where a small object gleamed, half buried beneath a stack of old files. It was a relic, a piece of ancient technology, unearthed years ago in a dig he had long since forgotten. The artifact was said to be a remnant of a civilization that had vanished millennia before humanity rose from the darkness. It had never been fully studied, dismissed as little more than a curiosity. But now, as Gabriel's hand hovered near it, he felt an odd connection. A pulse thrummed beneath his fingers. The whisper intensified. The Keeper, you are chosen. Suddenly, the room around him seemed to shift. A distant hum filled the air, like the sound of an engine idling far beneath the earth. The artifact began to glow, its intricate designs shifting and twisting before his eyes. It wasn't supposed to do that. His rational mind screamed at him to step away, but an unseen force tugged him closer. The whispers flooded his mind, now joined by images, fragments of distant stars, alien symbols, and faces that seemed to flicker in and out of existence. You have been marked, Gabriel. Humanity's last hope lies with you. His breath caught in his throat as the room grew cold, the shadows deepening unnaturally. The whispers were louder now, almost deafening, and yet in the chaos, one word stood out: Archon. Gabriel recoiled. He had read about them, legends, myths passed down through the ages, of beings who came from the farthest reaches of space. There had been no proof, only stories, but those stories painted a terrifying picture. An ancient race of godlike beings who sought to consume knowledge and destroy those who dared stand in their way. The artifact pulsed once more, sending a shockwave through the room. His vision blurred, and in the darkness, he saw a figure, a being wrapped in shadows, standing at the edge of his awareness, watching him. Find the order, the voice whispered, as if the very fabric of time had bent to its will. They will guide you. Time is running out. As the room returned to silence, Gabriel was left alone, his mind reeling, the weight of an unknown destiny pressing down on him. What was happening? Why him? The whispers were gone, but their meaning was clear. The war was real, and now Gabriel Locke was its keeper. The world outside Gabriel's lab was a quiet, ordinary place. The hum of the city and the rush of everyday life continued, oblivious to the chaos that had just been thrust upon him. But for Gabriel, nothing would ever be the same. He couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching him, waiting for him to make a move. The whispers had told him to find the order, but where were they? Who were they? With no clear answers, he began digging into his own research. The more he read, the more unsettling it became. The Order of the Silent Watchers, a name that seemed to appear in the most obscure texts and forgotten journals. References to them were buried in footnotes, dismissed as myth or superstition. Yet, across different cultures and timelines, the same message was woven through the stories. A hidden society that had existed for centuries, dedicated to protecting humanity from forces far beyond its comprehension. Gabriel's search grew more frantic as the nights passed, the weight of his newfound responsibility pressing down on him like a heavy mantle. He had no training for this, no expertise in ancient societies or cosmic threats. He was a scientist, not a protector. But then, one evening, as he sat poring over dusty documents in a cramped, forgotten library, he stumbled upon a breakthrough, a name. It was there, hidden in a yellowed letter between two faded pages, barely legible but unmistakable, Isabel Torres. The letter mentioned her as the head of the Order of the Silent Watchers. The letter hinted at a meeting, a place where Gabriel could find answers. The coordinates were cryptic, leading him to an isolated mansion deep in the mountains, a place where the Watchers were said to have met for centuries. He had no choice. The whispers had spoken. It was time to go. Hours later, Gabriel found himself on the winding road to the mansion, the fog rolling in thick around him. As the car made its way through the mist, he wondered if he had made a mistake. What if the order wasn't real? What if he was walking into a trap? But deep down, he knew he had no other option. The fate of humanity was at stake. The mansion loomed out of the fog as he pulled up to the entrance. It was old, its stone walls cracked and weathered, yet it held a strange, quiet power. Gabriel took a deep breath before stepping out of the car. The door opened before he could knock, revealing an elderly woman with sharp, intelligent eyes that seemed to pierce right through him. "You've come," she said simply, her voice rich with authority. Gabriel nodded, unsure of what to say. "I'm looking for the order," he replied. I need to understand what's happening." The woman's gaze softened, and she stepped aside, motioning for him to enter. "You are Gabriel Locke, the Keeper," she said, her words carrying a weight of inevitability. Inside, the mansion was a labyrinth of dimly lit corridors, ancient bookshelves, and hidden rooms. The air was thick with the smell of aged paper and incense. Isabel Torres led him to a large, circular room, its walls lined with mysterious symbols and star maps that seemed to shift ever so slightly when Gabriel wasn't looking directly at them. "You are not the first to bear this burden," Isabel said, her voice carrying a quiet sorrow. "The Keeper of Secrets has always been human, passed down through generations. But this time, the threat is unlike any we have faced before." Gabriel felt the weight of her words settle in his chest. He wasn't just part of a story. He was the story's final chapter. The whispers had been right. The Archon were coming, and humanity's survival depended on his understanding of what they truly were. "There is much you need to learn," Isabel continued. "The Archon are not just conquerors. They are knowledge thieves, scavengers of the mind. Their power comes from consuming the very creativity that drives all civilizations. And they want to feed on humanity's most precious gift, its ability to create." Gabriel's thoughts raced. The pieces were starting to fall into place. But even as the first inkling of understanding began to form, another question arose. What made humanity so dangerous to the Archon? Gabriel's mind raced as he absorbed Isabel's words. The Archon were not merely conquerors, they were predators, hunting the very essence of what made humanity unique. The thought struck him with chilling clarity. The Archon weren't after resources, power, or territory. They were after humanity's creativity, the spark that had driven civilization to build, invent, and explore. What if they succeeded? What if they could drain the creative potential from every human mind? What would remain? "You've seen the signs," Isabel continued, her voice grave. "The Archon have already begun their assault. You are the Keeper now, but there is still so much you do not understand." Gabriel nodded, though the weight of it all seemed too immense for him to grasp. He had been thrust into a war he wasn't prepared for. He wasn't a soldier or a general. He was a scientist, a man who solved problems with equations and theories. But now, those tools felt useless against a foe like the Archon. Humanity's survival depended on him, and somehow, he had to find a way to stop them. That night, as Gabriel sat in the mansion's library, his mind turned over every piece of information he had learned. He thought about the whispers, the cryptic messages that seemed to come from nowhere. They spoke of an attack, of something that was already in motion. As if in response to his thoughts, the world outside the mansion suddenly shifted. A burst of static filled the room, and Gabriel's phone began to buzz with urgent messages from his colleagues. News outlets around the world were reporting a sudden, unexplained event, a blackout, a massive surge in electromagnetic activity, followed by an outbreak of violence in key cities across the globe. His heart skipped a beat. This wasn't a coincidence. He raced to the nearby computer and quickly accessed a global newsfeed. Images of chaos flooded the screen, cities burning, governments in disarray, armed forces scrambling to maintain control. But there was something else beneath the surface. Gabriel zoomed in on a particular broadcast showing an elite military unit engaging in a fierce battle with a strange, glowing figure in the heart of New York City. The figure, humanoid but not quite human, flickered in and out of existence like a mirage, its movements impossibly fast and fluid. And then, as if sensing Gabriel's gaze, the figure turned toward the camera, its eyes glowing with an unsettling light. In that moment, Gabriel knew the Archon had arrived. His mind worked quickly. This wasn't just an attack, it was a statement. The Archon were testing humanity's defenses, striking at the core of the planet's most powerful cities. They weren't interested in conquest yet. They wanted to see how humanity would respond, to gauge the strength of its resistance. It was a brutal, calculated strike to show that Earth was vulnerable, that they could strike anywhere, at any time. Gabriel's thoughts snapped back to the mansion. Isabel had said the Order had been preparing for this moment for centuries. But what did that mean? Was there a weapon? A way to fight back? Suddenly, the door to the library opened and Isabel entered, her face pale but determined. "They've made their first move," she said. "This is only the beginning. The Archon are testing our limits. If we don't act soon, they will have us. All of us." Gabriel's stomach twisted. The weight of his new responsibility pressed on him, but there was no time for fear. The battle had already begun. He had to find a way to fight back, and fast. "The Order has secrets, knowledge that could help us, but we have to reach it before the Archon do," Isabel continued, her voice steady despite the growing sense of urgency. "You've been marked, Gabriel. You are the key. Your connection to the artifact, to the whispers, it's the only thing that can guide us to the power we need." Gabriel clenched his fists, feeling the weight of his destiny press down on him. The first strike had been made, and humanity was already on the brink. The Keeper of Secrets had to act. He had no more time to question his place in this war. The fight for Earth had begun, and Gabriel Locke was the only one who could stop it. Gabriel barely slept that night. His mind was a whirl of fragmented thoughts and images, each one more confusing than the last. The Arcane were no longer just a distant threat. They had shown their hand, and the world was teetering on the edge of chaos. But even more pressing was the cryptic message that had emerged from Isabel's words. The hidden codex, the key to humanity's survival, was within reach. Gabriel wasn't sure what this codex was, but he knew it held the answers he desperately needed. The following morning, Isabel led him deeper into the mansion, through hidden corridors and stairways that seemed to defy the logic of the house's design. The air felt thick, almost oppressive, as they descended into an underground chamber, where the walls were lined with ancient symbols and books in languages Gabriel had never seen. It was like stepping into a different time, a place where history itself was guarded and preserved. "This is the archive," Isabel explained. "It contains the secrets of the Order. The codex you seek is within these walls, though few have ever had the courage to unlock its full potential. It's not just a book. It's a living document capable of reshaping reality itself." Gabriel stared at the vast collection of texts. The idea of a living codex was hard to wrap his mind around. Could something so ancient still hold power? And why had it remained hidden for so long? Isabel walked to a large stone pedestal in the center of the room and placed her hand on a smooth black surface. The ground beneath their feet shifted, and a section of the floor slid open, revealing a small, glowing orb. As Isabel retrieved it, the chamber seemed to hum with energy, and Gabriel felt a strange pull in his chest. "This is the key," Isabel said, holding the orb out to him. "It will allow you to access the Codex, but be warned, it is not an easy path. The knowledge within it is not for the faint of heart. Once you open it, there is no going back." Gabriel hesitated. What could this Codex possibly hold? His hand trembled as he reached out to take the orb, feeling the warmth of it against his palm. The moment his fingers brushed the surface, a flood of images poured into his mind: alien landscapes, distant stars, ancient civilizations, and a chilling vision of the Archon, their cold, calculating eyes watching from the shadows. The Codex was more than just a book. It was a network, a living map of knowledge spanning across the universe. It wasn't just a record of humanity's past, it was a guide to the future, a blueprint for survival, and it was meant to be unlocked by him. Isabel watched him carefully as the orb glowed brighter in his hands, its energy pulsing through his body. "You're beginning to understand, aren't you? This Codex, it's not just knowledge. It's a weapon, an intelligence that adapts and evolves with the user. It's the key to defeating the Archon, but it will require all your strength to wield it." Gabriel's mind swirled with possibilities. The Codex could be the answer, but how could he control such a power? The Archon were creatures of immense intellect, their mastery over technology and warfare seemingly unmatched. Could this Codex truly level the playing field? Before he could respond, the orb suddenly dimmed, and the room grew colder. A low rumble vibrated through the chamber, and Isabel's expression darkened. "They know," she whispered. "The Archon are already aware of our movements. They will stop at nothing to prevent you from accessing the Codex." Gabriel's pulse quickened. The urgency had escalated. The Archon were more than a shadow lurking in the distance. They were already on the hunt. And the only way to fight back was to master the secrets of the Codex before it was too late. The moment the orb dimmed, Gabriel knew the stakes had escalated beyond anything he could have imagined. The Archon were not just an external threat. They had infiltrated their very presence, watching and responding in real time. They had felt the stirrings of the Codex, the first tremors of the power that might be humanity's last hope. Isabel's face was set in grim determination. She grabbed Gabriel's arm, her grip tight with urgency. "We don't have much time. They will send more of their agents. We need to unlock the Codex fully, now." Gabriel's heart raced. The room around him seemed to pulse with energy, the walls flickering with shadows that danced unnaturally. He could feel the Codex within the orb, its potential radiating through his hand, but it was still incomplete. There were pieces missing, something he needed to understand, some link that had yet to be revealed. Isabel stepped back, as if sensing his hesitation. The Codex responds to the mind of the one who holds it. It is not just a repository of knowledge. It is a conduit, an amplifier of human creativity. Your thoughts, your ideas, every spark of inspiration you've ever had, it all feeds into the Codex, and it shapes itself to your understanding. Gabriel looked down at the orb in his hand. How could something so small hold such power? His mind swirled with the implications. The Codex wasn't just a key to defeating the Archon. It could unlock the true potential of humanity, something that had always been there but buried deep beneath the surface. The pulse of creation itself, the force that powered every new idea, every invention, every leap forward. "What happens if I fail?" Gabriel asked, his voice strained. He could feel the weight of the responsibility pushing down on him. "What if I can't control it?" Isabel met his gaze, her expression resolute. The Archon want to stifle that potential. They feed on the loss of creativity, the death of new ideas. Without it, civilizations stagnate, fall into decay. You are humanity's last line of defense, but you must remember, The codex can only work if you embrace the chaos of creation. Doubt and fear will cripple you. Gabriel took a deep breath, steadying himself. The whispers of the codex had already begun to stir within him, urging him to let go of his fears. As he focused on the orb, the symbols on its surface shifted, more complex than before. He closed his eyes and reached out, letting his mind wander, letting the chaotic flow of ideas and memories fill his thoughts. For a brief moment, he felt as if the world around him had disappeared, and only his mind remained, a vast expanse of possibilities, unbounded and limitless. Suddenly, the orb pulsed with a powerful burst of energy, and a vision overwhelmed Gabriel's senses. He saw humanity's potential stretched to its limits. Cities that defied gravity, machines that could heal wounds in an instant, space exploration that had reached the edges of the universe. But there was more. He saw the Archon, their cold eyes watching as they drained the energy of other civilizations, taking their creativity and leaving only hollow shells behind. The vision shifted. Gabriel saw himself, standing tall, surrounded by humanity's greatest achievements. The pulse of creation flowed through him, and with it, the power to shape reality itself. He could feel the connection to the Codex, to the collective human will, surging through his veins. Isabel's voice broke through the vision, pulling Gabriel back to the present. "It's working. The Codex is responding to you, Gabriel, but you must act now. You can't hesitate. The Archon are coming." Gabriel opened his eyes, the weight of the vision still heavy in his mind. The pulse of creation, the heart of humanity's potential, was within his grasp. But he wasn't just a man anymore. He was the vessel for an entire species' future, and the Archon would stop at nothing to take that from him. The battle had shifted, and now it was not just about survival. It was about reclaiming the very essence of what it meant to be human. The Codex had unlocked something within Gabriel, something deep and primal. He could feel it coursing through him like a fire, a force that connected his every thought to the vast expanse of human potential. It was as if he had tapped into a long-forgotten reservoir of creativity, a wellspring of ingenuity that had always been there, hidden beneath the surface of civilization. The Codex had shown him glimpses of humanity's future, the heights it could reach if only it embraced the true scope of its imagination. But it had also shown him the Archon, their cold, calculating nature, and their insidious hunger for that very creativity. Isabel was watching him closely, sensing the shift in Gabriel's demeanor. "What you're feeling right now," she said quietly, "is only the beginning. The Codex is not just a weapon, it's a key to unlocking the legacy of humanity itself. But to truly understand it, you need to delve deeper. There are secrets in the past that have been lost, buried beneath centuries of history. The Archon have always been there, manipulating events, feeding on the ebb and flow of civilizations." Gabriel nodded, absorbing her words. He had begun to realize that his journey wasn't just about defeating the Archon. It was about understanding why humanity had been targeted in the first place. Why were they so dangerous to the Archon? What was it about human creativity that set them apart from every other species the Archon had encountered? Isabel led him deeper into the mansion, through rooms filled with ancient artifacts and maps, some of which appeared to be thousands of years old. They finally came to a small, unassuming door at the far end of the hall. When Isabel opened it, Gabriel found himself in a room that seemed more like a shrine than a library. The walls were adorned with intricate carvings, and in the center of the room stood a stone pedestal upon which rested a single, weathered book. "This is the hidden legacy," Isabel said, her voice filled with reverence. "It is a record of everything humanity has achieved, every leap forward, every triumph. But more importantly, it holds the story of our true origins, the reason why the Archon fear us." Gabriel stepped closer to the pedestal, his heart pounding in his chest. The book was unlike any he had ever seen. Its cover was simple, yet the symbols etched into its surface seemed to shimmer with a life of their own. As he reached out to touch it, a strange sensation filled the air. It was as if the room itself was breathing, and for a moment, he felt connected to something vast and eternal. When Gabriel opened the book, the pages appeared blank, but as he ran his fingers over the smooth paper, the text began to emerge, an ancient language he couldn't recognize at first, but somehow, instinctively, he understood. The words spoke of a time long before humanity had even begun to develop. The codex revealed that humanity had been chosen not by chance, but by a cosmic force, an intelligence that had seeded their creativity across the universe. The Arkan were not the only race to feed on the creative energy of others. They had once been like humanity, but something had gone terribly wrong. The Arkan had evolved into a species that feared change, their culture stagnating as they consumed the knowledge and creativity of other civilizations. They had grown obsessed with control, determined to stifle the one thing that could truly threaten their dominance: innovation. The Arkan fear what they cannot control, Isabel explained, her voice hushed as Gabriel absorbed the information. They saw the potential for something new in humanity, something they could never replicate. The legacy you're holding is the key to unleashing that potential. Gabriel closed the book, a newfound understanding settling in his mind. Humanity's greatest strength wasn't its technology or military might. It was its boundless creativity, its ability to imagine a future that had never been seen before. The Arkan could conquer worlds and destroy civilizations, but they could never replicate the spark of creation that made humanity unique. It was the one thing they could never take, and it was now Gabriel's responsibility to protect it. "We have to prepare," Gabriel said, his voice steady, for the final confrontation. Isabel nodded. "Yes, but now we know why they're after us, and we know how to fight back." The world outside had descended into chaos. News reports flooded in, confirming what Gabriel and Isabel had feared. The Arkan were no longer content with subtle incursions. Their strike had escalated, and their forces were spreading like a shadow over the globe. Cities fell silent, their lights flickering out one by one, as the Arkan moved swiftly and mercilessly, crippling humanity's infrastructure and sowing fear everywhere. Gabriel's mind was consumed by the legacy he had uncovered, the secret truth about humanity's origins and the power it held. The Arkan had feared what humanity could become, and now they were willing to risk everything to destroy it. But Gabriel knew they weren't just fighting against an alien race. This was a war for the future of humanity itself, a battle for the essence of creation, for the very soul of the species. Isabel stood at the edge of the mansion's balcony, her gaze fixed on the distant horizon. The fog had returned, thick and unnerving, crawling in from the sea and swallowing the world whole. It was as if the planet itself had become trapped in a waiting silence, a prelude to the reckoning. "We have no more time to waste," Isabel said, her voice calm but heavy with the weight of the task at hand. "They're closing in, Gabriel. The Arkan know where we are. They know what we're planning." Gabriel stepped forward, clutching the codex in his hands. The orb had grown dimmer since he first unlocked its potential, but the power it held was undeniable. It had guided him this far, revealing truths about humanity's hidden legacy, but now it was up to him to act. The reckoning was no longer a distant threat, it was here, and the final battle was inevitable. "What do we do?" Gabriel asked, his voice firm but tinged with uncertainty. "How do we fight them?" Isabel turned to face him, her eyes filled with a quiet determination. "We use what they fear most, our creativity. We must reach out to every human mind everywhere. The Codex has given us the key, but it's only through the collective strength of humanity's imagination that we can challenge the Arkan. We need to awaken something within them, something they can't control or consume." Gabriel nodded. He had been grappling with the enormity of his task, but Isabel was right. The Arkan had underestimated humanity's resilience, its ability to adapt, to create, and to innovate even in the face of extinction. The Codex wasn't just a tool, it was a call to action, a way to unlock the dormant potential within every human on Earth. Where do we begin? Gabriel asked. The first step is to find the Archon's command center, Isabel replied. We can't fight them directly, at least not yet. But if we can disrupt their leadership, their control over their forces, we can buy ourselves time. Time for the rest of humanity to wake up, to begin to fight back with the one weapon the Archon cannot take from us. Gabriel's pulse quickened. The reckoning had begun, and now it was time to take the fight to the heart of the Archon's operation. The Codex had shown him the way, but it was up to him to unite humanity's creativity, to awaken the spark of innovation in every person who still had the will to fight. We strike fast, we strike hard, Gabriel said, his voice filled with newfound confidence. And we show the Archon what humanity is capable of. Isabel's eyes gleamed with approval. Yes, the reckoning is upon us, and we will not go quietly into the night. The world outside might have been on the brink of collapse, but Gabriel knew one thing for certain. The final battle for humanity's future had begun, and he would lead the charge. The battlefield stretched out before them like an unforgiving horizon, a jagged line between two worlds. The Archon had gathered their forces around major cities, their command centers hidden in plain sight, shielded by advanced technology and alien warfare. Gabriel stood at the forefront, his heart steady, his mind sharp. He could feel the pulse of creation still thrumming through him, the knowledge from the Codex guiding his every step. This was the moment. The reckoning had come. Beside him, Isabel was focused, her eyes scanning the horizon, her thoughts aligned with his. We have one chance, she said quietly. The Archon are more than just invaders. They are parasites, draining the creative energy of entire civilizations. If we don't stop them now, we may never get another opportunity. Gabriel nodded. He had spent the last few days assembling a team. Scientists, engineers, and even everyday people who had felt the call to fight. Together, they had worked tirelessly to create the weapon that could neutralize the Archon's grip on humanity. It wasn't just about destroying their technology. It was about turning the very essence of creation against them. This is it, Gabriel said as he and Isabel stepped into the war room, where the final plans were laid out on the table. Maps and blueprints marked with strategic locations, the Archon's strongholds, their weaknesses. Gabriel's eyes lingered on a specific map, a facility deep in the heart of what was once New York City, now completely controlled by the Archon. It was there that the final battle would take place, and it was there that humanity would either rise or fall. The team was ready, their faces filled with a mix of determination and fear. Gabriel could see it in their eyes. This wasn't just a fight for survival, it was a fight for the soul of humanity. He looked around at them, seeing the very potential that the Archon sought to destroy. We fight with our minds, Gabriel said, raising his voice so that everyone in the room could hear. The Archon think they can control us, that they can drain our creativity and leave us empty. But they're wrong. Our creativity is what makes us strong. It is what makes us human, and it will be our greatest weapon. With those words, the team set into motion. The plan was simple yet audacious. Using the technology they had developed, they would infiltrate the Archon's command center and activate a device that would amplify humanity's creative energy, flooding the facility with the very essence the Archon could not consume. It would disrupt their control, sow chaos in their ranks, and give humanity a chance to fight back. Gabriel and Isabel led the charge, moving swiftly through the city's ruins, a silent army of resistance. The streets were eerily quiet, the destruction of the Archon evident in every shattered building and scorched piece of earth. The time for fear had passed. This was humanity's final stand. They reached the facility's perimeter, where the air crackled with an unnatural energy. Gabriel's heart pounded as he activated the device, the pulse of creation now fully in his control. As the device hummed to life, a wave of energy surged out, a brilliant light flooding the building's interior. Gabriel could feel the codex guiding him, shaping the energy and redirecting it. The Arkan forces, once invulnerable, were now reeling. The tide of the battle began to shift. In the chaos that followed, the human resistance surged forward, using their ingenuity to exploit the Arkan's sudden vulnerability. Gabriel saw them, ordinary men and women, rising to the occasion, their minds working in ways that defied expectation. In those moments, he realized something profound. It wasn't just the codex that made the difference. It was the collective will of humanity, the shared drive to create, to adapt, to evolve. As the last of the Arkan forces fell, Gabriel stood amidst the rubble, his heart filled with both relief and awe. The battle had been won, but the true victory lay in the fact that humanity had faced its greatest challenge and overcome it, not through brute force or advanced technology, but through the power of its imagination. The dawn of a new era had begun. And as the sun rose over a world beginning to heal, Gabriel knew one thing for certain: humanity would never again be the same. The pulse of creation had been awakened, and there was no limit to what they could achieve. The Arkan had learned the hard way that humanity could not be controlled, that its potential could not be stifled. And in the end, it was that very creativity that would guide them to a future beyond their wildest dreams.